Good evening, ladies, and perhaps gentlemen who are listening in. So tonight, it's nighttime here in Denmark. Tonight, we're going to talk about the number one habit keeping you stuck fighting in your marriage. And I'm thinking about women, and sometimes we change gender. So just look at it like if you're the man or you're the opposite of what I'm saying, put yourself in the other shoes. But the number one habit I found that keeps us stuck fighting in our marriage and keeps us stuck miscommunicating with our husband, the one or the partner, the one that we attract that's opposite to us, is thinking out loud. So what I want to talk about is either stop talking, stop thinking out loud, which is the same, and why it's so difficult to do that. Why is it so difficult to stop talking? Why is it so difficult to stop explaining? Why do we feel the need to explain? And I want to dive into explanations. So if you can do one of these three things, stop thinking out loud, and then it's stop your thought patterns, right? If you don't say what you're thinking, that's great, but you're still thinking it. So number one is don't say what you're thinking, but number two is rearrange what you're thinking or come to terms with or understand why you're thinking what you're thinking and why it's not working. So once you manage your mouth by not speaking out loud, which is a huge, habit to overcome, and it really takes understanding what you're doing and why you're saying and why you're saying it. Then look at your need to explain. Why are you thinking what you're thinking? What is it that you're sharing? Rebecca, we have people in. Thank you for joining in. Hey, Rebecca, nice to see you. Or I see that you're popping in. You and me in here. I was just talking about the number one habit keeping us stuck. So Rebecca, you can unmute and you can join. You can say hello. You can just listen in. It's up to you. You can also put your camera on if you want. This is being recorded. So since you just jumped in, I just want to recap that the number one bad habit we're talking about today is to think out loud, to say what you're thinking. Stop saying what you're thinking. So that's number one. And then stop defending your behavior, mostly your bad behavior, right? So if you stop saying what you think, you'll still be thinking it. So look at what you're thinking about. It might be easier in a dialogue. You're welcome to just chat with me like it's the two of us, and a handful of people will watch the replay, but only the ones that have asked for it. If you want to join in the conversation, you're very welcome, Rebecca. So why the need to explain, and what dialogue are you having in your head that you're thinking out loud? So for me to be like, why did I do that? Why did I scream at my boys? Or why did I lash out at my husband? Why did I come across as the opposite of who I am? Why did I act like a non-loving wife? Why did I do this bad behavior? And when I'm talking about bad behavior, it's not a moral judgment. It's just lashing out, blaming, complaining, hosting a pity party. It's only bad because it doesn't get you to what you want. You want to get to love and connection. So it's bad in the point of, sense of direction, bad to what you really want. So being honest about what we want is love and connection, right? Whatever variation of that. So bad behavior stands in the way of us getting to where we want to go, the way to love, and good behavior gets us there. So what tends to happen is we do this bad behavior, and then we go, why did I do that, inside our head? And when we think out loud, we answer the question, oh, mommy's just tired, or I just feel so alone. Then you start explaining your emotions to your husband because it's the emotions that made you whatever it is, bad behavior that you did. So let's say I lash out and I like hiss at my husband. Then I go, why did I do that? And I start explaining to him why I did it. And then it comes across as blame, because when I'm explaining it to myself, I'm like, it's because you did that. It's just because I feel so alone. I'm the only one cleaning up. Sorry, I yelled at you, but it's just I'm the only one dealing with all these things. And then I start listing the practical things that I feel all alone doing. And to him, that's just more blame. So what happens is I do a bad behavior. It could also be a pity party. Then I start explaining to him why I got into my pity party and why I was crying. And when I'm explaining it, I'm explaining my emotions to him. So I'm explaining my bad behavior with my quote unquote bad emotions. And all that this becomes is explained blaming. So what happens is I do a bad behavior, or let's say we, write to me in the chat if you can relate, and do participate if you want. You'll get great coaching here if you want, Rebecca. So we do the bad behavior, you know, the blaming, the lashing out. You can be in silence. You can also be blaming without, you know, saying anything. It doesn't have to be extroverted like me, like, it can also be inside, like the silent treatment, whatever it is. We did it. And then we blame him for it. So see what I mean? We do a bad behavior and then we explain it. So stop explaining your bad behavior. Stop defending it. Stop explaining your emotions, first of all, or most of all. So why is it that we think out loud? And not why is it that we think out loud? That's just how our brain is wired. But why do we think what we think? Why are we explaining? It's because we're wondering, why did I act that way? And we want to explain to him that we're not bad people, or there's a need for an explanation. So I want to know, if I'm right about this. Rebecca, could you answer in the chat or just unmute? Do you also have a need to explain? Let's make it a dialogue, so I could really nail it. Anyone have the need to explain? Okay, so the need to explain, if you didn't feel at some level inside of yourself guilty of something, you wouldn't have the need to explain. So the need to explain, whether or not we recognize it. You do, Rebecca, please unmute and share. Share how it comes across for you. And does it make any sense? Can you see how you do a bad behavior and then you start explaining it because you didn't mean to act that way, or you wanted him to know there was a reason, right?
Absolutely. Definitely. I was working, so I wasn't able to interact like I'd like to.
You talk right now, or?
I'm right in the middle of working and I don't want other people to hear, but
I get that. Okay. So
I
just
would like to listen in.
Yeah, just answer in the chat. Okay, cool. So here's the deal. We would love it if our husband said everything on his mind, right? So we give what we would like to get. So we think naturally he wants to know the reasons behind what we did. So there are two things. The fact that we feel guilty for doing something, or we regret it, we're remorseful. We know we shouldn't have done this bad behavior. So think about whatever it is, and it's not a judgment, right? So, we regret it, but why regret it? What about just, admit it's okay? Like, why the big regret and need to explain? What if it's the explanation that keeps us stuck? And the other thing is that he's not like us. He doesn't want to know. He can't understand our feelings. Moreover, we can't understand them. And when we try to explain them to him, he gets lost. And so do we. We get lost too, because the only reason we're explaining our emotions to him is because we don't understand them. So I didn't look at it like this, but it dawned on me, I don't understand my emotions. That's why I don't understand my actions based on my emotions. I'm like, I love this man. I open the door. I start bitching at him. I get annoyed with him, but I love him. So I'm like, I'm a big puzzle. Like, why am I acting this way when I have so much love inside? It just comes out the wrong way. So I think out loud, and that's what makes everything wrong. Don't think out loud. So first of all, get rid of the habit of thinking out loud, and then change the dialogue in your head and know that it's okay. Whatever you did, we don't understand why we're doing what we're doing most of the time. And that's okay. We don't need to explain it. So you always get stuck when you start explaining any argument you have with your husband. You're prolonging that argument with what you think is the solution. So you think, if I could just make him understand this one point, then everything would be good. And we're right here. And that's what keeps us stuck in the argument, is wanting to explain and get him somewhere where he can see what we mean. And both parties are like that, but it's never going to happen. So the thing we think is going to solve the argument is what prolongs it. And that is our need for explanations, our need for him to understand something. Give up the need for you to make your husband understand something, especially your emotions. So own the fact that you don't understand your emotions, and we really don't. That's okay. But your reason why you're really explaining them is because you don't understand them and you don't want to be judged on your bad behavior. So here's the deal with step 1 in my 12 steps. It has different names, but one of them is admit and move on. So just, in your head, preferably do not speak out loud, but if you do, that's okay. But then just say, I shouted, I shouldn't have, and then stop it. You don't have to explain why you shouted because it's gonna keep you disconnected. It's gonna be like you did a crime and you're defending it and you're indirectly blaming him. If you look at your explanations to why you did what you did, you're always saying it's his fault, one way or the other. We're either saying it's our children's fault, mommy's just tired, you kept me up all night, or circumstances, mommy's hungry, mommy's the only one cleaning up, whereas mommy or husband. So we point to these exterior circumstances like lack of sleep, which it's true. It's not that it's not true. It's just that you saying it or thinking it does not help you, because it's like, okay, then I'm not in control of my own emotions or how I act. It's this outside thing that make me act the way I do. So you're programming your brain. You're telling yourself and your husband and your kids that you're not responsible for your emotions. Like if lack of sleep can make you angry, but it can also be not. And there are tons of times when no sleep didn't bother me at all. But then there are times when it does with the ones I love the most, unfortunately. When I do my work and I'm coaching, I'm up all night interviewing John Gray. I wake up at 5, I coach again, I love it. And then here comes my husband and children. And it's so much harder for me because of all the trauma, the love, it's more important for me to love my kids, but it's harder. It's way harder sometimes with the ones that we love the most. So if you want to be rational, think about what you're saying in your explanations and know that you're just scratching the surface of the truth. Because if you're using sleep, for example, like I did, there are also many times where you don't need to sleep. So what's really going on? And just the habit of explaining your actions or your emotions is what keeps you stuck. But most of all, it's speaking out loud, meaning what I mean with that, we all speak out loud. What I mean is saying what you're thinking. So stop saying what you're thinking, because your husband gets totally confused. So does some of your kids when they're that type, or maybe the other way around, maybe your wife. So it's just the type of person that we are. I just say husband and wife to keep it simple. But whomever you have attracted, if you're speaking out loud, they don't speak out loud, right? They're introvert, they keep it inside, they don't say anything, they're the opposite, right? So stop saying what you're thinking, because it will only drive a wedge. It'll keep you stuck, and it'll keep him stuck. It'll keep you separated from each other, because he doesn't think out loud. So he can't grasp the concept that it's just, let it go. He's going to take it in. He's going to, like, for him, he thinks. And when he's done thinking, he'll speak if it makes sense. And I get that you think out loud, and I do it too. And it's great in coaching, and it's great for creation. It's great in many places the way we are. It's just not great with the men that we attract, or the opposites that we attract in our life romantically. Don't say what you're thinking. Only when you're thinking good thoughts. If you're thinking love, do say it. That's great. But when we're stressed, don't. So that's what I call the number one bad habit, keeping us stuck, is to think out loud. And then it's the need to explain our emotions, secondly. And that's what I want to talk about with the espresso machine, with the 3 magic words from my husband that we most want to hear. Why is it that we so want to hear the words, I understand you? Think about that for a second. If we didn't subconsciously blame ourselves for something, we wouldn't have such to have those words, I understand you. Why is it such a relief? Why did it end the argument by the espresso machine that my husband said, oh, I understand you. I never thought about it like that. But when you say like that, then I get it. Like, now I understand. Why did I need to hear it? And why didn't I care when I found out that he didn't mean it at all? It's because what's going on is I'm standing there in the argument, and I'm getting more and more frustrated and angry with him and hurt. What must really be going on underneath everything is me blaming myself. Why else would I need to hear those words? How can the words, I understand you, poof? Why is that? Think about that for a second. Why do I need to be understood? Why do I need to explain myself? And now I know why. If I blame myself, if I'm defending something, explaining something, basically it's a lie that I'm telling. That's one part of it. But let's just stay here in the fact that why the need to be understood it's because we did something wrong, or we feel we did something wrong. We're judging ourselves on some level inside of ourselves. We are judging ourselves. And I don't really think that, what I think what's going on is that the explanation is a lie that we want to enroll ourselves in. And that's the real problem. So we might not even be blaming ourselves, but there is something with truth and a lie. There's a truth inside, and then there's this lie, and it creates a conflict. And we so want to be understood, and it's great to be understood, but get that we haven't done anything wrong to begin with might be better, and it might take away that need to be understood. And here's just what I want to say is that your husband is never, ever, ever going to understand your feelings. Like, he's never going to understand your logic. He's never going to understand probably why you do the things you do. And I don't even understand it either, but I do think it's more, I have zero chance. I just don't get it because I'm not inside his head, and his head is so different than mine. And we don't need to understand his head, or just his heart. So give up the need to be understood, because it's never going to happen. Like, he's never going to really understand. And how and why should he? It doesn't matter. Like, it's kind of like you want something intellectually from your head to his head. And it's a lost cause, and it makes no sense really. But we feel that that's the solution, right? It's what I call the argument-based explanation. And then the second type is the regret-based explanation, right? It's like, why did I do that? And you start explaining why you did it to yourself and to him. And it really just comes down to, I wish I didn't do that. So just say, shit, I acted bad. I wish I didn't do that. Stop explaining, stop the explanations. They make it worse, because really they're lies and they're excuses, and they're not truth in a way. I mean, it's not that it's not true. I would understand you. You can explain it to me and I get it. That's fine. That's not bad. But with your husband, it disconnects you to explain, right? Just know that, shit, I regret what I did, and that's why I'm stuck explaining, and that's okay. And make it deal with him. Tell him, like, here's what I tend to do, and can we just have like a safe word or something? You just go, like, you can push a button. I had this with my kid, and I remember being right here on the couch, and I still deeply regret that he tried to push me here when I was mad, or here. And I had sworn to him that that was like a button that he could push when I became mad, Mom, and I would stop. And I didn't stop that time. And he was just so sad. And yeah, one of those moments, right? So make a safe word with your husband, because what happens is like a rabbit hole, and we can't get out of it. And once we're in the loop of wanting, we're not going to stop until he says, I understand you. So either tell him that he can use those words and he doesn't have to mean it at all, but just use them, because understanding is a feeling, and he wants to produce that feeling in you. And maybe it's the other way around. You want to produce that feeling in him. So think about understanding as a feeling you want to produce in yourself or in him. And it's not logic. There's nothing you're going to say that's going to get you there. It's just going to be, oh, I understand you. Wow, I feel understood. And that's great. And then just make love, because it doesn't matter. From our head to his head, it can't create anything, but from my heart to his heart can create a lot. So don't explain your emotions, but manage them and be in good emotions. It's great to communicate from your good emotions, but do not explain them. So there's a difference here. So notice your emotions and change your dialogue with yourself and what you focus on. Like, if you focus on, why the fuck doesn't he move the beer bottles from the table? Focus on the fact he's a great guy. He's so grounded. Like, I can always find something positive to say about my ex-husband, and then there could be tons of negative things, but why talk about it? Why even think about it? It doesn't matter. It's stupid to think about it. It's the most stupid thing we can do is to think about anything negative about ourselves or our husband or life in general, but it's just a habit, right? So interrupt your dialogue, and change it. Change your focus, and your attitude is kind of like the filter. So attitude is like, it's something that stays with us, I think. And focus is how we shift it, right? So our attitude is our attitude towards our husband. If we bitch a lot, we complain a lot, or we see things, that's like an attitude is like the constant eye, the filter, I think. So some people have a good attitude and you can get that too. It's just a matter of habits. So attitude is maybe just the sum of all your habits in regards to how you look at things. But the focus you can shift, right? So if you have a bad attitude or something, that the filter where it's, you take reality in and you just tell yourself a bad story, then change your focus, right? Shift. And then when you do that, then you can communicate, because when you shift to looking at and focusing on and telling yourself something positive about your husband, or just a curious question like, gee, I wonder how he feels when I'm acting like this. We don't want to ask that because we're really acting really bad. And it becomes like, oh, did I do that? Oh my God, how must he feel? Then we have to, understand how, it's excruciating to really know how he feels sometimes, or to think about it, because it's painful that we act the way we do. And that's okay. Be okay with your own ass. We all have them. We all show them. And it's okay. So just, have complete tolerance with yourself. Know that it's okay. And be okay to look at yourself. Because otherwise we're just looking at all his asses, all the things he's doing. And that's not going to get us anywhere. So free yourself and look at how you're behaving and how he must feel. And then after, where it may feel excruciatingly embarrassing or whatever it may feel, you'll feel compassion for him. If you ask, gee, I wonder how he feels, then you get to compassion. So ask a different question to get a better answer. Don't ask the question, how can I live with him and be happy when he's like that? Don't ask if you should get a divorce. Ask the good question, gee, I wonder how he feels, and shift your focus. And then you shift your emotion. And from that point on, it doesn't matter what you say, because now you're in your heart, you're in your compassion, you're in love, the state of love, maybe not in love, but now you can communicate anything or better, because that he receives how you feel. And how do you change how you feel? You change it by what you focus on and your dialogue. And here's the number one hack to stop being a bitch, or whatever we call it, or stop like, don't give up the need to be right. It does not matter. The only reason you so want to be right is because you're wrong. That's the way I see it anyway. Why do we have dire need to be right? It's because we want to feel understood. It comes back to that. I want to be understood. I don't want to be judged on my bad. Be okay with your bad behavior. It's not the bad behavior. It doesn't matter. Your bad behavior really doesn't matter. So be okay with your bad behavior, and then you don't need to explain it. And so here's this thing: you put your hand on the stove and it hurts, you go, ow, and that's okay. But what you do from there on, you have a choice. When it's not hurting anymore, you have a choice. And it may take a while. You may 10 times do bad behaviors, complain, but at some point you're going to have a choice, a rational choice, right? So choose to admit and move on. No matter how many times you chose the wrong, it's like we choose the wrong path and we hold on to it. But it's not the way to love. The way to love is over here. So just change course. It's okay that you went the wrong way. You don't have to, be married to the wrong way. You don't have to stay on the wrong way just because you took the wrong way, right? So argument-based explanations, regret-based, and then the third one is I call love-based. Like you would love it if he shared everything on his mind, right? And that's why you explain everything about your mind and your emotions, and give love, but give what's love to him. So it is not by any means love to him he doesn't want to know everything that, or anything that goes on inside of your head. He just doesn't. So it's okay that you would love to know what he's thinking and feeling, and he may tell you one day, but don't think for a second that that's what he wants. So that's how I see it. You may see it differently, and you may be in the opposite role. You may be the one not wanting to share, and he may be the one wanting to know a little bit more about what goes on inside of your head. But just know that in these bad habits, or number one things that keep us stuck, is that we give what we want to get, but we give what's love to us. So if you want love from him, give love, but give what is love to him. It may be silence, blowjobs, it's so easy to give and they come back multiple times. It's fun, doesn't cost anything. That's a great habit, I found. And it may be a little weird to say, but most of the clients I talk to, they would love to talk about emotions with their husband, but most of the husbands, they would just love silence. And I think it's because we have this tendency to blame when we talk, and he's used to what comes out of a woman's mouth is blame, whether it's his teacher, his mother, his other girlfriends, you. So he loves silence. And we love talking, and it creates this, I call it I forget what I call it, but he shuts down because we talk about our emotions. Just when you say, I feel, he shuts down because he gets scared. He definitely shuts down when we have a certain tone of voice. And I have it even with my son because I don't know why I love him so much and I love my ex-husband so much, but they can just annoy me, really. And then there's just a habit that I act annoyed towards the ones I love, and it's a really bad habit. But of course they shut down. So here's what you need to take away. And here's the paradox that happens is that he shuts down, the woman gets more insecure, and so she talks more to get him to open up, and he gets more scared and shuts down more. We want the connection back. We're like, oh, where's the connection? The connection is inside of your heart. I get that you feel connected to him when he's open up and he's sharing, but create the connection yourself first. Don't go chasing it from him, because I know you get scared when he shuts down and you don't know what he's thinking. You don't know what's going on. And you're like in the blank or in the black or whatever you call it. You're like, you don't feel connected to him because he either shut down or that's just the way he is. For whatever reason, just feel the love inside of you. You can, at any second, you can create a connection without him opening up and talking. And just know this, he gets scared. He doesn't know what to say. He knows that whatever he says is most likely it's going to be used against him. So of course he's scared. So think about that for a moment. You get scared, you lose the connection, he shuts down, and then you want him to talk, and he gets even more scared because here's a fact. We get mad at him when he opens up about what he's feeling, right? Or what he's saying, because we think it's so stupid what he's saying sometimes. Like, he could say something really hurtful. He's not used to talking, and he's not, like, it's just, for him, he takes the Fifth Amendment because he knows everything he's going to say when you're like that, or when he perceives you to be like that, it's going to be used against him. And he's practical. He only talks when it makes sense to talk, and he loves winning. So why should he start talking when he knows he's going to lose? So he shuts down. And then you blame him for not talking and not opening up. So when we understand that about a husband, we can relax, and he can sense that. And then he may dare to open up. And if not, that is okay. And I still remember when I figured out what happened inside of me, and that I was on my own agenda when I wanted him to come out of his shell again. When I figured that out, that I was fixing my own wrongs, and I was so eager to get him back because I regretted that I shut him down. When I was okay with that, and I just patted him on the back, he came out back way faster. So if you want him to come out of his shell, then you're blaming him for being him. Let him be where he is and be okay with it. And trust his love. That's step number 3 in my 12 steps, is trust his love. So at any point in time, you can trust his love, and you can think of it and you can tap into it. He doesn't have to do anything or say anything, so forget about that. Love is not in the head, to the head, and understanding. It's from the heart, right? To drop into your heart by just thinking about the fact that he loves you, thinking about your wedding night or your wedding when you said yes. That's all still there. It's inside of you. It hasn't gone away. Yeah. So love-based explanations, because you would love it if he shared everything inside of his head. Just know that he wouldn't like that. That's not love to him. It may be silence, and whatever roles may switch around, but that's how I found it. So those are the 3 reasons. So know why you're explaining and let go of that, and just course correct yourself when you're in the middle of it. Try to talk to him when you're not in emotion. I don't know if you have, like, you sit down and you make like couples meetings or strategies, make fun of it. It's great after sex to talk about these things, right? So just have a safe word. Tell him, I know I have a tendency to do this and I get stuck and I just can't control myself or help myself. Can we have a safe word? What if you say chocolate or bamuska? Make some fun word. And then if he says it, like, it's so random, bamuska, something, it'll take you out of it, right? So we just act so childish and so weird, and in love just makes us crazy, right? All we can do is laugh about it, right? But it does create destruction when we fight so much. And then I remember my mom and my stepdad that would laugh afterwards. I would sit there like a child, completely like, I was so shocked. It was awful. And then they would just laugh about it. But I wasn't in that, I wasn't in the makeup part of it, right? I was just, so I wasn't included in the fact that I made up. So it really has repercussions when we fight and we let go into our emotions. It's kind of like drinking too much wine. You get, emotional kind of over abuse of emotions, but still make fun of it, make light of it. That's okay. But also make a plan, right? And change the habits. And when we get stuck in a rabbit hole, we're doing something wrong. We're holding on to a lie, to an explanation. I remember my son right over there saying, you're just mad at yourself for something. And it just took me a while. I had to keep repeating it and be okay with that. So here's my take on lies. Lies is something we tell ourselves that we believe in. So it's not like a deliberate lie. It's something we believe in, right? So we all lie all of the time. And the problem becomes in the explanation, in the story, when we want to stay in it and we want to repeat it. So be honest about your lies, whatever they are, just call it untruth. And look at your explanations and stop your explanations. Don't be defending, just admit your own bad behavior really quickly, admit it and move on. I shouted, I shouldn't have. Okay, right now I'm having a huge pity party. That's not serving me. What happens is our emotions of when we're angry, jealous, pity party, they're seductive and they want to be right. And we get sucked in and we're just like, we built this case. Yeah, he did that. I did that. I gave him so much and he didn't do it. And he didn't care about me. And we're like making this balanced scorecard where we're so right and he's so wrong. And we're so right to feel so sorry for ourselves. And we're so right to be whatever stupid thing we're creating. We're so right to feel miserable. We're making a great case for something really bad. And that's okay. That's just what we're doing. So why not create a better case? Like we determine the evidence, what we pick up and look at, right? So that's what I found happens, that emotions are so seductive that I really created a world that I believed in, where I was the victim and I had a reason to cry. But I was the one building it and narrating that story. And it just grew and grew and grew. And the emotions, they just grow like weed, like crazy. But luckily, so does the love emotions. They also grow just as exponentially stronger and faster, maybe even more. It's just a matter of habit, right? So what I want you to take away is do not say what's on your mind. Stop thinking out loud and then think better thoughts. And so I would only recommend sharing like to a coach, because if you share to a friend, she's going to say you're right and he's wrong and you're going to get stuck. If you share with your mom, she's definitely going to say you're right and he's wrong. And if you share with him, he's not going to understand. It's not going to be constructive. So get a community. I'm glad to provide one. It's what I do and what I love to do. Community with strong leaders, so it doesn't become a bitch club of what he did. Like share in there, but don't share just with your girlfriends and your mom what you're feeling and what you're going through, unless you can do it outside of the situation, because there's a difference between like sharing from your heart and picking up the phone and just bitching about your husband. You want someone to interrupt your story. You want someone to say no to your story, because you're enrolling yourself in the story all the time to be right. So letting go of the need to be right is the only thing that gets you to connection. So if you take away anything to help you with the getting rid of these number one bad habit of thinking out loud and the saying what you think, that's what I mean. Whenever I say, yeah, it is the need to be right. So do you want to be right about whatever annoying thing you're saying and in the annoying voice? And I can see myself, do you want to be right or do you want to get to connection? You can't have both. You can't be right and get to love and connection. So why is it so important to be right? You didn't do anything wrong, so you don't have to be right. It's okay. You don't have to be right about the fact that he did all this wrong and you did nothing wrong, because that's what we're saying. When we want to be right, we really look into it. We're explain blaming to him, and we're saying it's okay what we did. Just be okay with what you did. Then you don't need to explain that you're not guilty. You need to explain anything. You didn't. It's okay. So whatever we do is completely okay. Like I've done the most terrible things, but it's okay. It's what they are. What happens is your reaction afterwards. That's the problem. So it's not the lie, it's not the crime, it's the cover up. It's not the lie, it's when we don't want to recognize the lie and we'd rather be right. We choose to really lie. We choose to go further away from the truth when we stay in our explanation. So the lie is okay, but when we defend the lie and we rather stay in the story, the excuse, which disconnects us, just take responsibility is the best habit. So whatever happens, just say, I could have done better. Just make that a habit with that. You don't even have to consider what you're talking about as much. Just have a habit of saying, okay, for my first response is, I could have done way better, because then he'll look at what he could have done better. If you go like, yeah, I see, but still you did that. That's just not working. Stay on your own turf and make it a habit to take responsibility for everything. Just make it a fun game, because that's more worth playing. Don't go into, he's going to see what he's going to see. It's not your job to make him see anything. When you're focused on what he should or shouldn't do or what he should see, he's not seeing it. So you see what you should see. You focus on what you can do better. That will inspire him to focus on what he can do better. As soon as you want him to see something, he's going to look away, and chances are he's not going to realize it anyway. Let him have his aha moments. Just only thing you should worry about is thinking positive thoughts that create positive emotions. That's really what we should do all day long. And then, yes, there is a power in also feeling our emotions. That can be if I was feeling sad today, and that was okay. And I was just like, I was really tired. I'm like, oh my God, I have this call. Should I do it? Yes, of course I do it. So be okay with feeling the way you're feeling, but know that it's entirely up to yourself how you feel with what stories you tell yourself. And if you feel great, chances are he'll feel great. So that's what I mean about leadership. Like it's leading yourself to inspire things in others, but don't be over on his turf. Don't have a game plan for what he should do. Have a game plan for what you should do. And then let him come to you. And then when he does, listen without thinking you know anything. Be curious without thinking you know the answer. And be present in the moment, willing and open to learning something new without thinking you know. And he's going to tell us stuff that we can pick up when we're very present and have peace of mind. And he's probably saying things all along in so many different ways that he loves us, or what's wrong. Like maybe he's saying what his deepest emotions really, in his way, and we're not picking up on it because we're too busy, or we're too much thinking we know the answer, or like, so there's surprise messages everywhere, and he's just communicating differently than us. Like my son, he doesn't communicate like, I'm like, why don't you answer me? I don't get it. Just relax. And then you might get it if you're curious and you're not going anywhere. So be curious and create a connection by just being here and not trying to get him anywhere to understand anything. Like if you're trying to get him to understand something, you're trying to get him, you're seeing the solution as being out there in the future somewhere. And the solution is right here and right now. The solution is just being with him and not trying to understand him in your head, but maybe feel compassion and understanding and just being with him. Like that's what my ex-husband knew so much about, just being in the present moment without, I was so busy getting somewhere. And then you're not connected to anything, like getting there to feel better, doing that, just be here, and then he'll feel understood and he'll open up, or whatever will happen. But it's not out there in the future, and definitely not by explaining anything. So just be there and be present, and just know that he's got a lot of things that we can learn from. So whatever he's doing, try to do more of that. Whatever you're doing, automatically try to do less of you and do more of him. Try to do what, and he will also, automatically take your lead and from your automatics. And if we switch our automatics, I will automatically be more like him instead of automatically be, the way that I am. And then we can create something new because we do something different. So how do we do something different? Is that We say different things to ourselves. We look at different things. If you're always looking at the same, saying the same, you're getting the same, just shake that up. And for me, it is definitely do automatic. So if I have an impulse to do something, what I would normally do is speak. Way better for me to wait and not speak. So whatever it is for you, notice what your automatic is and do the opposite. It's always the opposite. And funny enough, my opposite is more like how my husband acts. And oftentimes I'd ask, even now, 3 years after we got divorced, gee, I wonder what Torsten would do. And that's the answer for me. What would he do in this situation? And I will always be me, and I will always be pushy. I will always be like, so that, and that's okay too. But magic happens when we do the opposite. That's what I want to leave you with. Always do the opposite, which is don't say what you're thinking. Like my husband asked me once what I was thinking about, and I love favorite question. And I talked for 20 minutes, and probably that's why he never asked again. And whenever I asked him what he's thinking, he'd say nothing. And that's just because he has a big heart, and he protects it the way he does. And because he's been yelled at or like scolded for saying what he thinks. And get this about your men. Like imagine men, when they were with men traditionally, if they said what they felt, they would be mocked, right? And if they said to the woman how they feel, like he thinks you're an idiot. And when he tells you that, you're going to get mad at him. But he's right to feel that way sometimes. But he's just used to, I'm assuming, I don't really know, but that's the way I look at it, and it really helps. He's used to when he says what he's thinking or feeling, you get angry, right? So if you want him to talk more, which you do because you can't fit any more words inside of his head until he gets some word out of his mind, because it's really like a jar. We put too many words in our husband's heads, and he needs to get some words out. So whatever he says, don't get angry at him. Let him get some words out, and it'll become a habit for him, more and more of a habit for him to talk more. And then you, at some point, you can talk more because he got something out, because he wasn't afraid. So if you don't want him to shut down and not say what he's saying, thinking, or feeling, create that safe space for him to say what he wants to, or make him practice. It's okay. Sometimes I go like, why? That's the stupidest thing to say. Just don't scold him for it. Like, why would you? That's so hurtful. Like, but be okay. The game is for him to be allowed to say whatever he's thinking or saying. Don't have any opinion about it. Just come like more, speak more. Because then you will get what you want when he speaks more, which ultimately probably is to get more words into his head, if you were like me. So stop saying what you're thinking and think some better thoughts, because your husband loves you, and he's most likely always the same. And then all of a sudden we blame him for something that he always did. Nothing new. Why? So all of a sudden he gets, because we get insecure because it's been a while since we connected. So time since last connection makes your insecurity goes up. Well, he's just acting the same as he always does. And all of a sudden we get insecure and we start whatever, blaming, yelling, pity party. Our emotions take over because it's just been time since last connection. That's all. It's all math. Time since last connection with your husband, which is making love, or being romantic, giving and receiving love. Time since last connection equals insecurity up. So take responsibility and know that it's only your insecurity that's gone up. He's the same. So the mess doesn't matter around the house after great sex, but then a couple of days goes by, and then it all of a sudden matters again. So either have some more sex, or clean it up yourself, or hire someone to clean it up. But he's not going to change, but you can. And then when you accept him and you change, he will probably also change, but be okay if he doesn't. This is the cool thing about our husband. It's great to have a husband that doesn't change. We go like this. Woo! What if he did like that too? It would be a roller coaster ride. We'd be dizzy, right? So that's what I want to say. That's just the way I look at it now. And look at it any way that helps you. And let me know what lands for you, and how you can use this, and when we should work together, when we should, be part of the community. Let's play together and create that space so you can have any kind of love in your relationship that you want. You can have a relationship filled with love every day. it's not that hard. It just requires you to come to my community or some other community that works with your leadership, that inspires you and gives you some tools and some ways to change your habits and your dialogue and some steps to take and some homework. Come into my community and do some homework, and you'll see the magic that happens from just one small piece of homework. And it's like, wow. And that's what you can create every day, all day around. I don't know if you can say that, but that's what's possible. Christmas coming up. Merry Christmas. I'm here for you. I love doing this. I love talking, preferably in a dialogue with you, but I'm happy that you're listening, and I'm going to send this out to replay to the people that required about it. Stay in touch and let me know what we can create together. If you're interested in my 3 months program, you're going to learn these 12 steps. You're going to take them with you for life. And you're not going to, you're going to look back and think, why didn't I do this sooner? So hit me up and I'll come with an offer for you that you can only say yes to, because then you will get to that point and you'll think, love doesn't have to be a struggle. Yeah, Rebecca, do that. Let's work together. I loved hearing your voice. Love does not have to be this silly, stupid way. Like it literally, I had it on my email. It takes 1 second. It really only takes 1 second. Haven't you tried that? By the espresso machine, we were stuck. He said, I understand you. Boom, I was in his arms. It takes 1 second to get back to love and connection, from frustration to connection to bliss. Let's be in bliss. Like, let it be blissful. We don't have to be angry. We don't have to be frustrated. We really don't. It's just because we're frustrated at ourselves. We're disappointed in ourselves and we take it all out on him because we really want to love him. It doesn't have to be that way. Let me help you make some great, loving, just fill your days with loving moments and loving times and make that a habit. It's all about habit. Why not have the habit that fills our house with love? So we made a role model to our children. Let's create that habit for you. Mwah. Merry Christmas. Stay in touch. Let me know what you want. My ebooks, my whatever helps you on your way. I'm here for you. Mwah. Thanks so much, Rebecca. Thank you so much. It's great being here with you. Have a great rest of your day. I know you're at work. It's daytime over there. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for being there. Good to hear your voice. Bye-bye. See you.
Bye.
Bye.